Part 3. The price of the Dawn King Morven's castle did not stand upon the hill, but rather grew from it, like a broken gray bone piercing the skin of the earth. There were no gardens, no vineyards, no hum of a vibrant court, only stone, wind, and a profound silence, broken by the distant cry of gulls and the eternal roar of the sea below. The fortress was a mirror of its sovereign's soul, arid, closed off, and obsessed with a single thing. For Amalthea, every step within those walls was agony. The human body that imprisoned her felt the cold of the stone in a way her immortal hide never had. The smells were of mildew, old wax, and a rancid despair. The weight of those walls seemed to crush not only her body, but her memory. With each passing day, the recollection of the eternal forest, the feeling of the wind in her mane, the light captured in her horn, grew fainter, a beautiful, painful dream, dissolving upon waking. In its place came new sensations: the rough texture of the dresses Maeve procured for her, the complex taste of food, and, most disturbingly, the presence of Evander. The prince was a paradox. Raised in that cage of stone, he was everything his father was not: warm, idealistic, and starved for beauty. He saw her not as a curiosity or a collectible, but as a miracle. And in his human simplicity, he saw Lady Amalthea, the woman, and not the unicorn, struggling not to die inside her. He tried to court her with the tools of his world, poetry. He read to her, his hesitant voice echoing in the empty halls. Verses about heroism and love that rang hollow against her silent, tormented reality. "I have had time to write a book," he recited one day, under the cynical gaze of a dusty banner. "It's about the way you act and look. I don't have a single paragraph." Amalthea, for that was the name she now had to bear, even as it burned her soul, looked at him. Her eyes, once pools of eternal wisdom, were now clouded with human confusion. She could barely recall the purpose that had brought her there. The quest for the others felt like a story someone else had told. "Who am I?" she whispered to Maeve, in a rare moment of privacy. The quarters granted to them were cold and gloomy. Why am I here? What am I searching for in this strange place, day after day? Maeve, ever practical, ever anchored in reality, held her hands. They were ice cold. "The unicorns," she reminded her gently, her voice a thread of lucidity in the fog growing in Amalthea's mind. "If you are not the last, once. I cannot recall it," Amalthea murmured, her eyes losing themselves in the flame of a candle. "It was a long time ago, something strange. It was innocent and wise and full of pain. The pain was the only thing that remained vivid. The pain of loss, of transformation, of longing for something she could no longer name." Meanwhile, Lysander played his part as court jester with painful mastery. He juggled goblets, pulled rabbits from moth-aton hats, and tripped over rugs on purpose, all under the impassive gaze of King Morven. The real wizard, Mabruk, had been dismissed, but Lysander's victory was bitter. He saw himself reduced to a clown, and every laugh from the small, scornful court was a blow to his newly discovered pride. "He does this for you," Maeve whispered furiously to Amalthea one day, after another tense dinner. "He plays the fool before Morven, to keep him from asking who you are." But the strategy was doomed to fail. Morven was no fool. Its obsession was a magnifying glass that saw through all dissimulation. He watched Amalthea with the intensity of a geologist studying a rare stone. He did not desire her, nor fear her. He collected her presence. It was during one of these dinners that the crisis arrived. Morven, bored with Lysander's antics, fixed his icy gaze on Amalthea. "A man and two women coming here," he mused, his voice like the grating of an iron door. "The girl, she seems so strange. There is something new about her." He rose, his dark cloak dragging across the stone floor. "Come," he commanded, not as a king to a subject, but as a curator to an exhibit. He led her to a narrow balcony jutting out over the sea. The waves crashed furiously against the rocks below, throwing salty spray into the air. "Look," he ordered. Amalthea looked. She saw the gray-green vastness, the white gulls, the furious foam. "My lord, I don't understand. I see nothing in the water." "Do you still deny yourself?" Morven's voice was a hiss in her ear. "Do you still dare to pretend to be human?" Her human heart raced, a fast, frightened rhythm. He knew. He had always known. I will cast you from here to join the others with my own hands if you dare deny what you are, he snarled, his bony fingers closing on the stone parapet. The confrontation was interrupted by the arrival of Evander and the others, but the damage was done. The veil was torn away. Later, in the relative safety of their chambers, Amalthea broke down. Tears came, then a human weeping deep and desperate that shook her entire being. Molly, be still. Lysander tried, helplessly. He is mad. Mad. Amalthea sobbed, the facade of Lady Amalthea cracking completely. No. It's all right, Maeve comforted her, holding her tight. We will find them. If you become so human as to weep, Lysander warned, his voice laden with genuine dread, then no magic in the world will be able to bring you back. It was the cat, a black feline with knowing eyes named Malkin, who gave them the final key. He found them in the corridors, amusing himself with a ball of yarn Maeve had. You have little time, the cat said, his voice an arrogant purr. Soon you will have a human in that body, and no unicorn evermore. He told them of the secret path. When the wine drinks itself, when the skull speaks, when the clock strikes the right time, riddles. Always riddles. It was Lysander, with his now burgeoning magic, who solved the first. He transformed water into a sweet, cheap wine, and with it bribed a talking skull that guarded the castle's secrets. The skull told them the truth. The path was through the clock, not by waiting for it. The escape into the dungeons was a race against time and against Amalthea's own heart. As they descended into the castle's foundations, Evander confronted her. I will not go on, he declared, his voice firm. There is no choice. We must continue. Don't let me change, she begged, the woman Amalthea fighting tooth and nail for her life, for her newly discovered love. The Red Bull doesn't care about humans. Could walk right past him and away. If we do that, Lysander interjected, his voice grave, then all the unicorns in the world would remain prisoners forever except for one, and she will age and die. Everyone dies, Evander argued, his pain overflowing. Want to die when you die? I am not a unicorn. I am not a magical creature. I am human, and I love you. Don't leave. It was the moment of final choice. Amalthea looked at the young prince, at his face marked by an honesty she had never known. Marry the prince, and live happily ever after. It was a tempting desire, a happy ending within reach. But then she looked past him, into the darkness of the tunnel that led to her true mission. And she remembered. Not with the clarity of before, but with the certainty of a deeply buried instinct. Lear, I will not love you when I am a unicorn, she said. And they were the truest and cruelest words she had ever spoken. Evander, the hero, understood. A quest cannot simply be abandoned, he said, his voice trembling but resolute. The unicorns have not been rescued in a long time, but not forever. They found the cavern, a vast natural amphitheater that smelled of salt, seaweed, and an ancient sorrowful magic. And there, cornered by the high tide, were they. Dozens, hundreds of unicorns. Their forms were ghosts of silvery light against the cavern's darkness, their horns a field of fallen stars. They were alive, but their essence was dormant, their spirits broken by eternal imprisonment. It was a sight of heart-rending beauty, the final proof of Morven's madness. And then the Red Bull emerged, not as an animal, but as a cataclysm. Its bellow filled the cavern, making the very stone tremble. It advanced on the herd, its purpose clear, to keep them there, to frighten them back into the depths. It was then that Evander, the hero who could not fight a legend, did what heroes do. He placed himself in its path. Not with the hope of winning, but with the courage to buy time. That is what heroes are for, Lysander whispered, horrified, as he watched the prince brandish his sword against the impossible beast. The confrontation was brief and brutal. Evander was thrown against the rocks like a rag doll. The scream that tore from Amalthea's throat was from both the woman and the beast, a symphony of agony. Do something, Maeve, screamed at Lysander. You have the power. What is magic for? She yelled when he hesitated. What is it for if it cannot even save a unicorn? And Lysander, looking at Evander's fallen body, at the pain in Amalthea, understood. That is what heroes are for, he repeated, but this time not as a statement, but as a recognition. And Evander, hearing or not, fulfilled his destiny. With a last breath of strength, He rose and charged the bull one more time, distracting it for a crucial moment. It was enough. In that instant, Amalthea's choice was made real. The memory of what she was, the love for her own kind, the pain of seeing the man who loved her die, all of it fused into a single, indestructible will. She was no longer Lady Amalthea, she was Eliana, and she charged. The battle between the unicorn and the Red Bull was the collision of two primordial concepts: untamable freedom and obsessive possession. She did not fight with hatred, but with a fierce sadness. Her horn, now real and terrible, was not a weapon of destruction, but an instrument of liberation. She drove it home, not to kill, but to break the spell, to dispel the shadow that held her people captive. When the Red Bull, defeated not by force, but by a more powerful truth, recoiled and dissolved into mist and smoke, a silence fell over the cavern. And then, one by one, the unicorns began to move. Slowly at first, and then, like a rising tide of light, they galloped out of the cavern into the freedom of the open world. The earth trembled with their passing, not with fear, but with joy. Amalthea was back in her true form, but nothing was as it had been. She approached Evander's body. The prince was dead.
Oh, the price of the dawn had been paid.
But in a world where unicorns once again ran free, even death could be challenged. The life Eliana had brought back to the world seemed to concentrate on that single point of sorrow. A soft light emanated from her, enveloping the prince's body. When the light faded, Evander was breathing again. Morven's kingdom, without the king's obsession to sustain it, began to crumble. The king himself, seeing his treasures liberate themselves, seemed to wither with his castle, his madness finally consuming him completely. The farewell was bittersweet. Evander, now king, looked at Eliana the unicorn, knowing the woman he had loved was forever lost to him. "I will miss you," he said, his voice laden with a mature pain. "I never had friends before." Eliana bowed her head. "I wish I could see her just once more, to tell her all that is in my heart," he whispered. "She will remember," Lysander said softly. "From the bottom of her heart, when men are fairy tales written by rabbits. Of all the unicorns, she is the only one who knows what pain and love are." The last image Evander kept was of her Eliana, the last unicorn who had become the first of a new age. Galloping to join her people, carrying with her the memory of a human love that would transform her forever. She was free, but she carried the price of that freedom, the scar of a love that made her unique, even among her eternal kind. And Lysander, the magician who had finally found his magic, looked toward the horizon, where the herd shone under the rising sun, and knew that some stories have no end, only new beginnings. If you enjoyed it, subscribe to the channel and receive more videos like this. Thank you very much.